'Tis the season to shine with H&M. Discover the holiday collection and find fashionable pieces for your wardrobe or for under the tree. Get inspired and dazzle with this year's glam. From tuxedo styles, bow detailed pieces, impressive prints, and more. From unforgettable looks to unforgettable gifts. With fashion finds to home decor, find it all at H&M. Treat your loved ones and yourself this season. Shop in-store or at hm.com.
Hail cheaters! Welcome to the Always Cheating Podcast. My name is Josh. Talking quickly, Brandon, because got a quick turnaround between game week 14 and game week 15. It kicks off on Tuesday afternoon for us, evening in the UK. My name is Josh Lannon. I'm here with Brandon Kelly. Brandon, how are you?
You remember the Micro Machine, man? Hey, this will date us as far as ad campaigns go, but the guy who... What says small car more than guy who talks really fast? Somehow it made sense to me.
It's weird that it worked. I mean, because we still remember Micro Machines. Like, we remember the Micro Machine ad long after that company ceased to exist. I don't think anyone under like 35 has ever heard of Micro Machines.
There might be an FPL correlation here, Josh, because Micro Machines were, what if we take the success of toy cars and make them smaller? And I feel like that's this season of FPL. What if we take the success of high-scoring FPL game weeks and make the scores smaller? I feel like that's the way the season is going.
Yeah, although it's kind of weird. I mean, I felt like the Man City game brought things back to a normal. I finished on 61 points. I feel like that's close to an FPL classic. Yeah. Like I've definitely had a couple. The weekend was an FPL classic, Brandon, where we had in my parlance, which just means we had a traditional game week, no Fridays, no Saturdays. It was also a classic in terms of the matches. I thought that we had, the 3-3 with Man City and Spurs was fantastic. I'm sorry for you as a Fulham supporter, but the 4-3 with Liverpool and Fulham was a terrific, really interesting match. Yes. Was it a great match? I don't know. Was it fun to watch? It's like true of a lot of Premier League stuff. It's like it's turned in. I don't know what it's turned into, but I'm here for it. Whatever it is, right? Like all of this chaos, I'm up for it because it is not made for a reliable FPL season, as reflected in many of our ranks. It has made for a lot of fun. And I have said this before, and I'll say it again. And I think it's really important to keep in mind that, at least for me, that I can deal with the bad FPL season if the Premier League is fun, right? Mm-hmm. Because at least I'm still, excuse me, I'm getting very emotional here as I talk, Brandon. No, but at least
choked up. Wow.
I'm getting all choked up. Yeah, exactly. At least but at least I'm still enjoying myself, right? And so the fantasy stuff is just a supplemental way to, and this to me is very much on the make fantasy fun again, right? Part of making fantasy fun again is make sure that fantasy is not the only lens by which you look at the matches over the weekend. And Saturday was okay. I mean, it was not as strong, but I think that Sunday really we saw with the chaotic Chelsea-Brighton match, and even I don't know how many people even watched it because there was so much going on. But the Bournemouth Villa was a back and forth 2-2 draw, and obviously any things with Man City and Spurs. I was stunned that Spurs ended up getting a point out of that match. It was given the first 15 minutes of that match, a point is an incredible return for them.
Did you see the XG philosophy on that match? Let me pull it up here. It was insane. XG philosophy had Tottenham at 0.56 XG and City at 3.09. So the fact that
0.56 feels a little low. I mean, I'm not saying it's wrong, but the Sun counterattack. I mean, what kind of XG do you put on something like that, right? I mean, is it like the counterattack itself is a low XG?
Yeah, I don't know how they take into account that Ederson probably should have saved that. Now, sure. I don't want to nitpick that because in the heat of the moment, and Son is a quintessential finisher and all of that.
Hits the ball hard.
I don't know how much of that plays into it, but then it's just interesting. City have done this in multiple games now where they exert their dominance over the match and still the fact that they've never prioritized defense in Pep's entire career at City, and this season seems to be coming back to bite them because they're just simple defensive mistakes that they're making.
Yeah, I mean they've always been defensively strong though under Pep. I mean, I agree. I'm not sure it's like his overriding. I don't think he's as passionate about defense as he is about like positive attacking play. But yeah, this season it really does feel I'm not even quite sure why. And it almost feels like there's like a little bit of a concentration problem more than anything else, right? I'm not even sure if it's the quality of the defense. I know they haven't had Stones for a lot of the season, but that was a pretty strong team they put out there today. And for that team to concede 3 goals pretty easily, right? It was a little. I mean, they're all well taken goal. I mean, especially the Lo Celso goal. I thought was a really impressive strike. There were so many good goals today. It was insane. Yeah. Like McAllister, Trent. Oh, okay. I will quibble on one point, Brandon, which is I think it was a little unfair to give Leno the own goal on that Trent strike. And it's not because to me, you don't know what's going to happen when that ball dribbles down off of the post, right? It's like, or the crossbar, excuse me. Like it hits the post. That ball could have had enough spin in it, right? That it sort of that it dropped down and dropped into the net. And so we're just assuming. And to me, it's like I don't understand how there are players who hit a shot on target and it takes a gigantic deflection, right? Literally changes like 30 degrees and evades the keeper. Somehow that's not an own goal, right? Because it was on target, but somehow Trent's crossbar. I know a crossbar does not mean on target, but like it was dropping down. We don't know what was going to happen there. So I don't like that being an own goal. I know it doesn't really matter because no one really had him as a
Trippier owner. I was delighted that was given as an own goal because Trippier's free kick against Manchester United on Saturday was just as good, just as close as Trent's free kick take, and just that Onana doesn't dive the same way that I'm like losing my bearings as Leno does. It doesn't end up in the back of the net. So I get that. Like I'm okay with that. Also, as somebody who benched Bernd Leno, fine, great. That means I made the right. Of course, I made the right choice starting another 2-pointer from Areola. That's the way it ought to be. What is a game week without a 2-pointer from Areola?
They went up 1-0 at halftime, and you knew it was like, what combination of things is going to happen here? God, Leno ended up with 9 saves in that match. That is wild. I don't feel like they were always the hardest saves. I felt like
lots of speculative shots from Liverpool.
Yeah, I thought he spilled a couple. I mean, his injury was a pretty bad spill. I'm not quite sure what happened there.
I feel like they must have shot his head full of anti-swelling medication at halftime. It's like the opening scene in Ghost in the Shell, where like the guy is assassinated by his head swelling to the point that it explodes. I was worried that was going to happen to Leno on the pitch.
I have to admit, for somebody who loves Japanese animation as much as I do, I have somehow never seen Ghost in the Shell. It is this weird gap in my anime watching history. By the way, Anthony Jedi Robinson, another assist, nicked a bonus point in a match where they conceded 4 goals. I'm feeling that to me is like actually low key has worked out to be an okay transfer so far. I think he looks really, really dynamic. I don't really know how many clean sheets are going to keep, but nobody is, Brandon. Nobody's keeping clean sheets. None. So what do I care about clean sheets? I just want assists and goals now.
Yeah, not even Arsenal, which was one of my 2 transfers this week, can even keep a clean sheet. My kingdom for a clean sheet. But Jedi looks fantastic. And as predicted, there is going to be rotation with Castagna and Tete now that Tete's fit again. And Robinson he's got that left side locked, and he is not known for his crossing ability, but he's looked on point. And defending somebody like Salah, like the pace he has, which is like Kyle Walker light-esque. I really like him as a player. I think people shy away from Robinson because he's so raw. But I wonder if he were to move to a different club and get some like Champions League experience, if there was another level for him.
Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, I feel like I can't always be objective about these American players, right? It's like when Weston McKennie moved to Juventus, I was like, there's no way that's going to work. Just like
Yeah.
I'm biased
Still there.
in the opposite direction. I actually underrate all American players, and I assume that every big move they made is basically like a PR move that the owners have done, right? It's like the inflated prices because it's going to get you more eyeballs in American televisions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like Pulisic going to AC Milan. You're like, okay. Though he scored this weekend, Pulisic.
Yeah, scored this weekend, exactly. But just to bring it back to fantasy, I think that you could do. They have Forest, West Ham, and Burnley all at home and through the next 4 matches. Not a lot of clean sheets to be found out there, but they do play in. And Burnley at home in 18 too, which is a week when Man City and Brentford blank. So if you're looking for a super cheap defender, you could probably do a lot worse than Anthony Robinson. So I'll just toss that in there. So yeah, game week 14 in the books, finished on 61 points personally. The big mistake was dropping Watkins for Isak. Of course, that looks terrible after today. And my rationale was basically that my bench was incredibly weak. I mean, and it bared out. I mean, I had Matty Cash got 1 point, Hudson-Odoi got 1 point, Robinson hilariously third on my bench got 4 points, but he was never. I was always going to have him third bench, right? Maybe not anymore, but yeah. And so my feeling was, well, if Watkins doesn't play, and it doesn't sound, I honestly thought he wasn't going to play because just the comments that came out on Friday. And the fact that they play Man City at midweek, I just thought they're not going to, given the midweek fixture, how many fixtures are coming up, probably not going to rush him. And then of course I think he played the full 90 today. Yes. And had a goal and assist, 2 bonus. So it didn't work out. And that's going to happen. I actually thought Isak played well, had some chances. Harry Maguire hilariously took a goal off of him early on in that match. Although Newcastle was the team that actually impressed me the most this weekend. They were really good.
Joel Linton is maybe the best player in the Premier League right now.
It's wild.
He's incredible.
They dominated Man United. It was 1-0, but it really felt like, I don't know what the XG, if you could pull up the XG philosophy for that one, Brandon, but it felt like they were, complete control. I bet that Man United's XG for that match was below 0.3. That would be my guess on that match.
Hold on. I'm actually just going to go to FB Ref for that one and look at Newcastle's XG was 2.6 for their 1 goal, and Manchester United. What was your guess?
I think it was I said less than 0.3 on the match.
Well, XG or FBRF has them at 0.4, so you've sold them short. There, Josh. You sold Anthony Martial short.
Yeah. They did have one good chance early on in that match. So, so 61 points. I guess I got the Haaland versus Salah captaincy right. Only by 2 points in the end. The late yellow may have cost Haaland a bonus point in that one, as well as obviously just a point itself. But whatever, I'll take that. Son getting 10 was great. Alvarez 5. So in the end, I actually finished on a little red arrow. I think I'm up. Let's see here. I was up 136,000 spots. So, I'm not going to complain about a green arrow, Brandon. I'm up, and we've got midweek ahead, and midweek is okay. Actually, let's talk about your week, and then I want to talk to you about midweeks generally first. So, how did your game week, bear out?
Finished on exactly the same points, 61 points. However, I did take a -4. So my transfers were Matty Cash out, which turned out to be a good call where he was falling down in Emery's estimation. And I brought Saliba in for a 1-pointer. And then I brought Mbomo in for James Ward-Prowse. So that's 6 points. It's basically a break even.
I guess.
Yeah, a break even. And I'm happy to have that done. Arsenal look good defensively for the next run, and Mbomo has some great fixtures coming up as well. So I'm fine with that, and I rode my luck with Watkins playing, and I feel like we've entered into this era with Premier League managers where they will just lie because they have no reason to not just throw subterfuge at their opponents. It's just frustrating.
It's going to change, right? It's going to change if they keep doing this, right? Something's going to have to change. They can't just keep just saying whatever they want, and then basically admitting afterwards, yeah, I had no incentive to say anything. I don't know. I mean, I guess I do they. I mean, does it really matter? I don't know. Does it only matter for fantasy managers and gamblers? Perhaps, but it's super annoying.
I don't see the Premier League or the FA necessarily as a progressive institution, so I won't hold my breath for them to do that, and that's fine. I don't care. I actually think it's kind of interesting to sort of play that guessing game. I mean, it's painful when you don't get it right, but
this is it's the same league that canceled a weekend of fixtures on a moment's notice because the Queen's nephew was a patron of the FA or whatever. So I think wow. I'm not sure how much things are going to change.
So I had a lot of ups and downs with this game week. So it was a low scoring for me to start Saturday, and then Trippier comes through with his 12-pointer, and I'm feeling really good. And then early on Sunday, Watkins with his 11-pointer, and I feel like I'm set to have a blockbuster Haaland captaincy and Alvarez to go. And I was on a green arrow until Son's late assist in the City match. Right. And Son getting the assist and 2 bonus put me from a green arrow onto a red arrow. So you're up by about 36,000 spots, and now I'm down by
136.
136. You're sorry to diminish your achievements, which are terrific.
It's like 10% of my OR. I'll take that.
You should. So I'm knocked down to 2.36 million. It's just I can't make any headway. I will say for red arrows I've received, this is one of the smaller ones. Game week rank of 3.1 million.
So any game week where you take. Yeah. I just interrupt you for a second. I just feel like any game week where you take a -4, a red arrow is probably, there's a good chance it's in the offing, right? And I think that it's often a gamble that you make, right? That you're going to get knocked a little bit back for 1 week, and then that kind of sets you up long term, right? You're sort of, you're making some kind of aggressive moves that you think will pay off over the next 4, 5, 6 weeks.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, Saliba, the Arsenal defense really has to come through, but I'm continually drawn to these horrible transfers that have marked my last month or so with Mark Gahey, Martinelli in particular. Like Martinelli was my fill-in for an injured Odegaard, and of course, Martinelli has not even clawed back.
That's been a disaster. Let's be honest.
Yeah. So, I mean, the only thing I left on the bench was Lascelles' clean sheet. So I'm happy with my benching order, and I'll move Leno in to compete with your Jedi Robinson going into game week 15 for my goalkeeper. Like Areola, please, stay on my bench forever for the love of God. It's insane.
I don't know what to do myself. I have Flecken. I don't know how it was possible to concede a goal in that match. They had what felt like 95% possession in that match. They were completely dominant. He didn't even make a save in that match. It was literally just the one. That's just this whole season. I mean, but honestly, it was just hard to get super frustrated about it because no one is keeping clean sheets, right? It's. I mean, only Newcastle. Honestly, they're the one team that I felt like they were in control defensively in this match. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think we saw Liverpool with Kelleher. We saw exactly the kind of the idea that you may want to bring him in depending on how long Alisson was out for. But the problem is they're just down too many players, right? You can't replace, maybe the best keeper in the Premier League or top 3, let's say, with a backup and also replace your left back with Tsimikas, who's okay, but honestly had a pretty poor game defensively, was probably at fault for at least one of those goals in today's match. And then Trent, who doesn't really defend, and then they lost Matip halfway through the second half of that match too. So I really, it's a tough spot because I have Tsimikas and or Tsimikas as they always say on TV, but to me, I don't know how to say that guy's name, Brandon. But I mean, they play Sheffield. They play Sheffield away. I have to start him for this match, but I also it's like I know that I'm starting him, and I'm only going to get 1 point when he's subbed down in the 70th minute. I know. No, I know that's what's going to happen,
maybe.
But I can't not start him.
I don't know. I mean, Konate is a great center back, occasionally first choice pairing with Van Dijk. Mm-hmm. Tsimikas, a very passable fullback. I think it's really just the Kelleher thing. And the Kelleher, the spills he had against Fulham were, like, at least the Tete goal was kind of unforgivable for a goalkeeper to let that one in.
Well, it was very similar, and he got kind of lucky because there was a Tim. I mean, I guess Tim was pretty far offside there.
Yeah,
that was another
quite. It's just going back to the XG conversation. Nothing that we would use as a crutch on this podcast, but the Flecken goal that was let in, Luton had, according to FBref, the lowest XG of the weekend, even compared to Sheffield United, which this was the embarrassment of all embarrassments, I think, so far this season. Now, if you're a Burnley fan listening to you, and hello to all, are there more Burnley fans listening to this podcast than Luton's XG of 0.2 in that Brentford game? But to have 5 put past you and have no response, Sheffield United have to do something. Not even like, I get the championship sides that come up and say, listen, let's just cash in, get the broadcast money, and try to figure out our next move for the championship season next season. Like, maybe that makes sense for your business model, but you got to give the fans something in return.
I know. They have not found joy, I feel like, so far this season, right? Yeah, they have won one match. Who do they beat? Well, I'm forgetting who they defeated, Brandon. Do you remember who Sheffield United beat this season? It can't be Burnley because they just lost 5-0 to them. It was Wolves. They beat Wolves 2-1 back in game week 11.
Mercurial team.
Yeah, seriously. I want to talk a little bit more about Wolves actually in a minute because I want to talk about my transfer for this week. So, kind of a quick start to this week's pod because we want to get to game week 15. Again, it kicks off on Tuesday. So this will not be one of our last week's hot take pod, Brandon. That was a full 90 minutes of you and I talking in a pretty evergreen way, I think. And we actually came up to a pretty good start. I mean, Zinchenko got a shout out in the pod. He picked up an assist. He would have been on for 12 if they hadn't conceded a goal late in that one. Darwin was
not great.
We talked about him not being good enough on the pod, and we saw that again today. And I was shocked that they came back to win. And I think it's great for the top of the table. It makes for an exciting season. But man, if they had lost that match or even drawn, like, those misses were incredible. Like, they were each worse than the one that came before, right? It was you could level remarkable.
The same criticism against Erling Haaland today against Spurs, to be honest. I don't know what that says about Darwin versus Haaland. I think that
at least Haaland has scored about 70 billion goals for Man City.
He's got a track record for sure.
Yeah.
I was the one hot take I regret from our hot take pod last weekend was saying that Fulham are going to be the lowest scoring team for the rest of the season. They've got 6 goals in the last 2 matches. So, like, up the whites, let's go.
They're like mid-table now in terms of goals scored. I think that it's So let's get into game week 15. I do want to quickly say thank you. We have 3 new Patreon supporters this week. So thank you to Tony Chandler, Julian Douglas, and our newest producer patron, Gareth H. So thank you so much to everyone who supports the podcast, whether you're new or a longtime supporter. It's very sincerely appreciated. And, we try not to do too much Patreon stuff this far into the season, but just remind, this is one of our kind of pledge month moments, Brandon, here in December. So if you got a Christmas bonus, or you, the pod is helpful, or, I don't know how helpful we've actually been this season, Brandon, but it's fun to, maybe you just enjoy listening to the podcast.
Sure. Sometimes the help is not necessarily the tips, but it is the commiserations. Yeah.
That's true. Special shout out
to
Vibes FC kind of pod.
We are vibes. I wanted to give a special shout out to our Patreon, James, who was coming through New York City this week, enjoying holidays with his family. So great patrons all across the community.
Yeah. So if you want to support the podcast, say thank you during this holiday season, Brandon. We're in the holidays now. I see it on the streets. I see it here in my own home. We got the largest tree we've ever got. We got a 9-foot tree, Brandon. You know how ridiculous it is to have a 9-foot real tree in your house?
Now, how do you put the topper on that tree? You breaking out a footstool? You standing on a kitchen chair?
We got a footstool, and then I stood on the top of the footstool, and then I picked up my kid, and I held my kid out, and they were able to put it on there. It was a real the whole thing, it could have gone calamitously. It was really
now that reminds me of a saying. So I got my wrist slapped by my boss a couple of weeks ago. There was a little bit of a project fail, and I was trying to clean it up at work, and it kind of all came together in the end, and we solved the problem. And I put a little button on this email thread by saying, teamwork makes the dream work. And my boss said my only complaint about that entire interaction was you saying teamwork makes the dream work. Don't ever do that again. So I hope that you didn't say that to Quinn when you put
was it because you were at
the
fault, or was it because he just doesn't like the expression?
He doesn't like the expression. He thought it was corny, and we have a no corn policy on our team.
Oh, that's good. That's good. You don't eat it. You don't talk. Not even popped corn, right?
Now,
there's just no. Yeah.
What do you think about this take? Just here's a free hot take. Post hot take pod.
Yeah.
Brian Hill of Tottenham Hotspur FC is the corniest player in the Premier League.
I don't know how. I need to think about the Brian Hill take. I mean, he's obviously not. He should not have been started, and I think he was subbed off at halftime, accordingly. But one of the funniest ones of that match to me was Son's open fury at him when he missed. He got an interception. He almost didn't even create the interception. Like the ball
Bernardo
was
Silva just gave it away, and then Bernardo Silva was like completely at sea in terms of like, no, Bernardo, you should just mark the wide open Heung-min Son in the middle of the box to rectify this.
It was wild. And so Son has like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 seconds where like the ball could be passed to him.
Yeah.
And Hill just keeps kind of dribbling, deciding what to do. And then he just passes it into like 2 Man City defenders. And Son absolutely lost his mind. It's if you've not watched this clip, it's hilarious just to see how mad Son gets. You rarely see this kind of open, like, I mean, obviously like it was Ronaldo level. That's what like Cristiano Ronaldo.
I feel like Son was standing on the penalty spot, like pantomiming, like tapping his wristwatch.
Yeah, exactly like that.
While all of this was transpiring, like any moment now, I'm still open. You could still pass me the ball.
All right, well, let's take a break. We'll get back and we're going to talk about game week 15.
We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. One of the things I love about Indeed is it makes hiring all in one place so easy and streamlined so I can spend more time on the rest of my business. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences. So the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
The holidays are coming. Find a gift for someone special with jewelry from Blue Nile. Right now, Blue Nile is offering special Black Friday and Cyber Monday deals. Save up to 50% on the season's most stunning trends. Blue Nile offers an endless selection of bold gold styles, gemstone jewelry, and classic diamond pieces. And now, for a limited time, get 36 months special financing on minimum purchases of $1,000. Restrictions apply. See BlueNile.com for details. That's BlueNile.com.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Selling a little or a lot? Do your thing however you cha-ching with Shopify, the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. Shopify helps you turn browsers into buyers with the internet's best converting checkout. 36% better on average compared to other leading commerce platforms. Get a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/offer23.
All right, Brandon, we're back. Game week 15 kicks off on Tuesday. We have 10 matches, but they're spread across 3 days. So the deadline, I'll just go by Eastern Standard Time here, and then you can adjust accordingly. But the deadline for us here on the East Coast is 1 p.m. on Tuesday. So make sure you don't forget about that if you're having a holiday lunch or something like that. 1 p.m. on Tuesday. I guess that's 6 p.m. UK time. So it's going to come very quickly. The Tuesday one always sneaks up on people every year. This happens. And so you have 2 matches on Tuesday. Like in the tradition of all midweek fixtures, they throw 2 stinkers at you right off the bat. You've got Wolves, Burnley, Luton, Arsenal. I mean, not like possibly interesting matches from a fantasy standpoint, but not the highest entertainment value there, Brandon. And then we've got 6 matches on Wednesday, Brighton, Brentford. That could be very interesting and fun. I mean, Brentford I was thinking about Brighton earlier today and whether Brighton are like a more talented version of like Leeds, where they're just sort of, I don't understand what they are at this point. It's sort of I'm not saying the bloom is off the rose because I think they're still a wildly entertaining team but it's like, it's chaos.
They're an art project. The fact that that starting 11 that De Zerbi put out was intense, to say the least.
Yeah,
and
guy I'd never heard of in my life was in
and then he totally reconstructs the team at halftime. And at that point, you just sort of bow down to De Zerbi and just be like, you live in a different reality than I do, and your reality feels like it's cooler and more fun than the one I live in.
It's like that Thanos gif, right? Where like the reality is whatever I want it to be. Sort of thing. That's De Zerbi. Yeah.
So Brighton is, good luck ascertaining what's going on there fantasy wise.
Exactly. Just don't get a defender. And unfortunately with Matoma out, it's kind of hard to tell. I'm not sure you could recommend having anybody fantasy wise on Brighton at the moment. And maybe that changes. I feel like they were much more stable last spring, right? And
at least who was playing for sure. Yeah.
There's so many injuries though too. I mean, Solly March being out, obviously Matoma now too. So I suppose that has to be a factor. Anyway, you have 6 matches on Wednesday. Brighton, Brentford, Palace, Bournemouth. So you going back with Gahey, Brandon? Is he back in the lineup for you?
I mean, as we've said, there are no clean sheets out there to buy. So like selling Gahey to buy another not clean sheets.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be advisable because Palace, if you just want to look at the team by team, Palace do not look like a good team at the moment, unfortunately. They are a shadow of what they were to start the season. So, I would never recommend getting a Palace defender. But right now, if I look at my transfers for game week 15, it all looks like sideways moves that are possible for me. My weak link might possibly be Gabriel Martinelli. And my problem is I don't have any money in the bank right now. So who do you get?
You also you just can't take him out before Luton either. I mean, it's even though these Luton fixtures may not be as, I don't know. I mean, Luton got destroyed by Brentford at the weekend. I mean, it's just hard to, you can't drop Martinelli before that. When you just have to hope he finally kind of comes good, I think.
I do. And Arteta is the opposite of De Zerbi in this sense where he clearly has a preferred starting 11. There is like one position that he seems to rotate in, and it's the Trossard, Kai Havertz position. And maybe in the fullback area. But I can see Martinelli just being consistent.
You're getting emotional. You and I are both getting so emotional in this pod, Brandon.
We really are. So, I'm inclined to keep Martinelli. And with no cash in the bank, who do you get who is 7.8 or below? You're looking at Jared Bowen. His fixtures aren't necessarily exceptional. I don't love his fixtures personally. I think Anthony Gordon might be the pick of the litter, but he's got a hip injury that's now flagged, and so that doesn't feel great. And I just want to believe, Josh, that Arsenal has something else there. Now, the positive thing from an Arsenal point of view is that triangle on the right side of the pitch with Saka and Odegaard and whoever it is, whether it's Ben White or Tomiyasu, that is like back to a high functioning triangle. And I really feel bad that I am owning as a fantasy manager the opposite side of the pitch that's just not doing any of the
Right.
attacking work now.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So
I mean, they are in the Champions League. It's just we're playing the wrong fantasy game this season.
Yes.
Brandon. I feel like let's assume that if you and I were doing Champions League fantasy, we would be destroying it. Okay, let's just assume that. And I don't want to do any research to decide whether that's an accurate take or not. So yeah, we have let's see, Fulham Forest. We talked about that a little bit already. Sheffield Liverpool, Villa Man City, which is probably the premier match. I mean, I know Man United Chelsea is the other big match on Wednesday, but of those two, I'm personally much more interested in the Villa Man City match. And I'm extremely curious to see if Villa can actually maybe even win that match. I don't know. I mean, it's you have to at least consider that as a possibility at this point, right? That Villa can find a way to pull that out. Now, they are not necessarily in the greatest of form, right? They did ultimately draw today pretty late with Bournemouth. They got kind of lucky, honestly, to draw in that match. I mean, Martinez made some big saves. Solanke had a big miss. Yeah. One of those matches where they could have gone down like 3-1 or 4-1, and suddenly that changes the entire tenor of the match. But they have been way better at home than they have been away this season. So I think that it's certainly affecting my feelings on the captaincy. And I also think with Watkins, for anyone who held him now, Rodri is now out for this for this match because of a yellow card accumulation. So they don't have Rodri for this match, which as we've seen repeatedly this season makes them. It basically opens up a giant hole in the middle of that defense. So I think that if you held on to Watkins, then he's a clear start in this match, and there's no reason to even if you were like, oh, it'd be fun to try with Darwin just to give it a shot, right? I don't know, like maybe you're a glutton for punishment, right? You want to go again with Darwin and bring him in before the Sheffield United match. I think that I would actually think that Watkins is especially when you factor in X minutes, right? And the possibility that Darwin may not start at midweek, which I think is definitely a possibility considering he played the full 90. I think that I think that Watkins is just more likely to score in game week 15 than Darwin is.
I agree. You watched the Bournemouth Villa match, and I kept trying to think what is breaking down for Villa away from home, and the midfield with Douglas Luiz, Kamara was just not exerting itself enough for me. Now you flip that to what Villa's home form is, and as you mentioned, Rodri being out, Doku went off with an injury of some kind, unclear how serious it is. Grealish also missing the Villa match because of yellow card accumulation. These are some big misses for how City would set up, and without Rodri in the midfield, can Villa actually own that midfield the way they would want to? So I agree with you. I think Watkins remains. I would view Watkins the way I viewed Son going into game week 14. I think City was going to win that Spurs match, but I had no doubt that Son was going to get a return. City just cannot keep a clean sheet. So I'm with you there. I'm interested to see what that Liverpool.
That you were absolutely right on that one.
Sometimes you got to be loud, right, Josh?
Yep.
So, but I would like to see Villa do something there. City, very, very odd. But yeah, I was going to say about Liverpool. I am curious to see what that front three looks like, because I agree with you. Gakpo might be ripe for a start away from home against the worst team in the division, and just give him a good midweek run out. And if had Darwin scored or looked a little bit more effective or clinical against Fulham, then maybe he gets an extended run. Yeah. But Gakpo looked good in the. Yeah. Go on.
Yeah. I was going to say it's a tribute to how progressive and advanced we've become as a society, that the dominant talking point was not Darwin's hair after that match, because it was I liked it. Did you like it? I found it distracting. I didn't enjoy it myself, but I'm also I'm not sure that I'm the target audience for what's cool anymore, Brendan. So like maybe that's what
that's good.
Maybe everybody under 25 dresses like that now, and that's how they do their hair. And I don't really know. I have kids. My kids are too young. I don't. It's like I'm in a weird gap moment right now, Brendan. I don't know what's cool anymore.
I remember
it's a darn shame.
Yeah, I was hanging out with your kid at Thanksgiving, and they were like, check out this playlist on Spotify. It's going to take me a while to find it. and they were typing into Spotify P, and then it was a combination of how many O's in the word poop to get the special poop playlist for SpongeBob SquarePants. So like that's kind of where your head's at. And Darwin,
exactly.
Darwin's just French braiding, so that's the next level.
He's got a plate or whatever. He's got the French braid going on, and my brain just can't process it. I'm just I'm too polarized at the two ends of the spectrum here, Brandon. Anyway, so we got then we have Man United Chelsea, which good luck trying to predict that one. That is a very unusual match. Man United really struggled in that one, and I wonder if there was a little bit of a hangover too after the 3-3 draw that they played in the Champions League, because that was a pretty explosive match.
They started the game against Newcastle somewhat well. I thought there was something there. I do think Martial up front is completely limp for them. The fact that Højlund is fit and should be able to start in midweek is good news. Major fantasy implication in this match is that Cole Palmer doesn't start this weekend. Does that mean that that Pochettino is trying different things with Chelsea, or does that mean that Cole Palmer just gets a rest for the festive period? And
I think it's more the latter. He's played great. It's hard to imagine that there's anything but that. And that was a real. Speaking of fantasy moments, though, that was a quite the moment when they do a lengthy VAR review, decide to do the pen, and then I guess maybe they hadn't announced the substitution yet, but they wait until the pen is taken for him to substitute onto the pitch. It was a wild. It was like,
I don't know that you can substitute somebody on just to take a penalty in
this
match.
Happen once? Maybe it has to be announced, fully announced. I remember a match where like Jamie Vardy was subbed on, and his first action was to take a pen, and so I don't know if the sub was because of the pen or not, but I remember there was a pen, I remember it was like away to Spurs when this happened. This is a couple years ago.
Oh, so we need to get the rule book. We need to take PGMOL to task for that. We didn't.
Oh yeah, I've got a copy here. I have my notebook.
We picked up that law book at Stockley Park when we were there. I was
at the FPL TV show, and you know how I'm such a memento hunter, and
you were like, "Can I take this?" And everyone's like,
there was this beautiful, fully illustrated PGML rule book, and I was like, "Can I just take this?" And it was like I asked all the right people because no one knew that if they could say
one
yes
guy
or no.
said, "I think so." It's sat there for 3 months and no one's touched it. So
yeah, exactly. I was the only glutton who actually wanted to look at a.
But were you watching the very end of the City Spurs match when? There was a foul on Haaland, and he had, in the process, put Grealish clean through on goal, and the referee called the foul back and basically whistled Grealish's one-on-one with the Spurs goalkeeper off. It was the most of all of the insane things we've seen this season. That was definitely up there, and I can't wait for all the hot takery about that this week.
Yeah. I will say, and I'm probably forgetting some big moment, but and obviously that was official, not a VAR moment, but I can't actually remember VAR being a major factor this weekend too. Maybe that's part of the reason why I enjoy these matches so much. I'm sure there's some giant VAR controversy that I'm forgetting right now, but at the moment I can't remember.
I think you're right.
It being kind of dogged by it.
Yeah, I think you're right, and that's good. And we prefer it this way, right? We would prefer that horrible decision at the end of the City Spurs match to be a defining thing that's not ruled by VAR. We can endure incompetency on the pitch, just not one that's orchestrated by a VAR booth.
Yeah, that is very true. It's if it's on the pitch and it's human error, then we're all kind of, or whatever it is, or you know, in that case, it's even an error. I don't really know,
or it's just a different interpretation of the situation, and maybe we'll hear a competent explanation of it.
Yeah, and we probably will in 3.5 months. When there'll be a review of the middle of the season fixtures. All right, so I am debating my transfer decisions. Where are you looking right now? Are you looking to make a transfer for 15? Are you on the fence? What's your thinking?
I'm gonna hold because, as I mentioned, I think my weakest point right now is Martinelli. If we assume Cole Palmer starts, which we've said we think he will, and then maybe it's Julian Alvarez, but how would we rate his performance against Spurs? His creation of that Foden goal was exceptional. Like the way Alvarez found that space and simply laid it off to Foden was like pure Pep Guardiola football. Beyond that, I'm not sure he had the best game, though. I'm not sure anybody at City really had a great match. But we've targeted, I think we've both targeted Alvarez to be out by game week 18. And it's just kind of a matter of who. So it feels a little too early to enact that plan. So I think I'm better off having 2 free transfers going into game week 16 and just kind of rolling with what I have.
Yeah. I mean, that's I saw you earlier, and I remember saying that. I was like, if I just forgotten the deadline, I'd be so much happier right now about a game. Yeah, sometimes it's not even about holding the 2 free transfers for later on. It's about just not making a decision that's going to make your team worse or be lateral, possibly, right? I think for me, the move that I am considering, and I'm not 100% on this, but I'm considering it, is it feels like the logical move, and it's Douglas Luiz to Hwang, and it just feels like Luiz has had some moments, and but I just think with Man City and Arsenal in the next 2 for Villa, and even Brentford away is not an easy match in 17. Even Brentford keeping a ton of clean sheets. I also just don't see that being a match where they're just going to pour him in, right? So kind of 3 tricky matches in a row. And Wolves have Burnley at home and Forest at home in their next 2. And even 17, they play away to West Ham, and they play home in game week 18 too, or the blank game week. So he's the same price as Luiz, so I can do that as a more or less like for like swap. And that feels like a move that feels like it's sort of targeting the fixtures. It's looking ahead at the next couple of fixtures, and his ownership is still not as high as you might think. He's at let's see, 6% is his team is selected by a percentage, and I'm sure that's probably higher in the top 10K. But hey, guess what, Brandon? I ain't in the top 10K. I ain't even close. So a 6% owned player who's got great fixtures, who looks good in like virtually every match that he plays, is kind of feels like a home run, like a kind of easy move, honestly. And so that's where I'm leaning at the moment. That feels like the easiest move to make. So that's the other move I would consider. I mean, kind of like you, I'm a little worried about Alvarez, and I will say he set up Doku for that. Doku had that chance where he hit. It's honestly about as close as you can get to
the crossbar and the post.
Yeah, exactly.
Incredible.
It was an actual postage stamp. It just didn't actually get he didn't lick the stamp enough, right? It was like a postage stamp that didn't.
He thought he was in the new era of like self-adhesive stamps, but he didn't check himself there.
Exactly. It was not one of those like forever stamps where you just peel off the back so it was an old school stamp. It didn't quite land, but that would have been an assist for Alvarez. Actually didn't really matter because he set Foden up like 3 minutes after that.
Alvarez was on for 2 bonus as well before Son got that assist. So, I mean, and what that tells you through the bonus point system is how active and on the ball Alvarez is, even though it's not like immediately apparent.
Yeah, and he hit the post himself, right?
That's right.
He had a nice chance, and so he easily could have had double-digit returns. I also just think with Doku and in Grealish out, Doku most likely at least for the midweek fixture, that probably moves Foden to the left-hand side. It's just very hard for me to imagine Alvarez not starting now for the weekend. So it may be that what I do is I make the Hwang Hee-chan move, and then I possibly move Alvarez hilariously back to Ollie Watkins for game week 16.
We are all going to have a week where we miss a Watkins haul. I had it when he got his mega haul like a month ago or plus, and you missed painful. It. But yeah, he's trucking, man. That guy's going to be trucking all season, Ollie Watkins.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing, I guess.
I know. I wish. I wonder if, actually listening to press conferences is a net positive for any of us. I feel, you're talking about it earlier, but it really feels like it's led me astray many, many times so far this season. All right. So let's a couple questions. Actually, let's start off with captain options. I think the captaincy is fairly straightforward this week. Now, of course, Haaland is always a great captain pick, but I think this is a week where Mo Salah feels like the clear favorite. Sheffield United are honestly just, they're absolutely terrible. And with apologies to Sheffield United supporters, but it is not quite up to Premier League levels, it would seem, based on what we've seen throughout the first 13 weeks of the season. So, and they've really had some like crooked numbers posted on them, Brandon, over the last
crooked
few weeks.
Numbers.
That's a baseball. That's what they say in baseball when you put up a whole bunch of runs in a, normally, in like a normal baseball inning, you might get one run in the inning, right? So if you get like a 4 or a 5, they say you're putting up a crooked number in that inning. So, so I feel like this is a match where Liverpool could, especially, they're going to be flying high after that 4-3 win too, right? So I think they could come out there and really, they could put 3 or 4 on Sheffield United fairly easily in that match.
It's going to be like a work retreat for Liverpool. It's like, guys, we've just got through like a really horrible project. Now let's go to this retreat at Sheffield United, and we can just light them up for fun.
Yeah. That's true. I guess those are like, and of course that's always like famous last words, right? Because that means that they're going to go there and it's going to be a 0-0 until the
a dull 1-1 draw.
Yeah, exactly.
With the Szoboszlai goal.
Yeah, but you just can't think that way, right? I just think logically you've got to go with Salah. I think that Haaland, of course, is fine, and I wonder if what do you think about Saka? Right, he's been very consistent. Doesn't quite have the high ceiling, I think, of Salah in this one. But if you wanted to be different, I do think that Saka's a reasonable pick.
Yeah, I think Arsenal would be the one place I'd look because of that idea of the certainty of the lineup under Arteta at the moment. Yeah. The issue, if you try to stick with Liverpool and be different and put the armband on Darwin, is you're going to have a high degree of anxiety going into Wednesday. Like, is Gakpo going to start in the middle? And then we kind of talked about this Villa City matchup and how Villa could be set up to actually win that match. Yep. There is, I feel like, no true viable alternative. And I hate it. Like, I don't think either of us want to be so definitive or narrow-minded on the captaincy, but this just does not feel like a game week to be tricky.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I feel like you say that every single week on the pod. I think so. But I do think that all we can say is how you and I feel to a certain degree, right? And you and I are stone cold, both going to. Let me pull up my bus team right now, Brandon, and make sure that if I get hit by a bus on the way to work tomorrow, that I have my captaincy all set up. I do. Salah captain, Son vice. So I've got Son as the vice over Haaland, and that's probably a mistake, just because Haaland, I don't know, he's like, nobody has ever had like a higher floor in the history of fantasy than Haaland, right? It's just like, even on a bad day, he gets 7 points.
Yeah, and he was actually just an assist machine or potential assist machine against Spurs today.
Yeah,
I don't know how much it is that I was stung by not owning Son today. I mean, Son has blanked 3 weeks in a row, and there was something about that match against City and the confidence I had for his owners going into this week where I just feel like, am I really hanging myself out to dry not having Son? I don't know. I think it's also a thing to do with Spurs, where Spurs are like, you're at school and there's a new kid who comes to school and you kind of size up the new kid and you're like, this new kid could be very cool, or this kid could be exceptionally dangerous. And I'm not sure which is right. One thing we know for sure, this kid's probably on drugs or something like that. I feel like Spurs right now are like, I don't know if Spurs are cool or dangerous. And I do know that Son is at least somebody I should try to make at least try to make friends with or learn more about what they're about. I feel like it's a weak point in my team right now.
Not having him.
What do you think about him?
If there was a this match made me feel better about him for sure. I mean, not that I was feeling bad, and I really wasn't. I mean, if I was really down, I would have moved him for Saka this weekend. And I really didn't honestly strongly consider it. And I kind of like you. I was like, well, I just was like, well, they're going to have a couple counterattacking opportunities in that match, and he's, without Kane there any longer. I mean, this is really the thing, right? It's just a totally different situation now. They don't have Kane; he's playing as a forward, right? And so we have to kind of rethink him a little bit, and his sort of what his kind of ceiling is in fantasy. Of course, he's always been a great fantasy asset. I think he was actually did he actually lead the FPL in points? Was it like 2 seasons ago or 3 seasons ago?
When he shared the golden boot with Salah? I don't recall. Yeah. I don't remember.
Regardless, he was up there on like the top 2 or 3. And sometimes I think we forget just how great of a fantasy asset he's been, kind of basically his entire time in the Premier League. So, I think he is probably a long-term keeper for me. And I think the match today was what really solidified that, because it just feels like it's just the way that Ange sets up. It's just if they're home, then they have a style where, in their home, they're playing a team that they're better than. They have a style where they can attack and still score and break down defenses. When they're away, they may not win the match, but they're going to create chances for themselves to score, right? And so there's kind of no version. There's no version of Spurs that isn't attack oriented, right? And that's a really having that kind of consistency is really nice for fantasy.
I think that's exactly the right way to look at it. And precisely, like, I wish everything were so cut and dry fantasy wise. That's what we're, especially when we're looking at clean sheets right now. It's almost like all these teams are more geared toward attack to a lesser degree than Spurs. So I do like that definitiveness under Postecoglou.
All right, let's do a couple questions then. We talked about Alvarez a little bit. Darwin, is there anything that it's just the same story as always, right?
Exactly the same.
Yeah.
And I'm happy that managers are still taking a punt on him, because I think Darwin, you may disagree with this, but I do think Darwin fits the make fantasy fun again approach, in that even though he's weird and is not clinical, is still an exceptionally fun player to watch. And no one was taking more joy out of that 4-3 victory than Darwin was today. So
that's true. You're right. I don't hate Darwin. There was like a moment today where, like, on the weekend or on Friday, I guess, when I was like, I just think that Isak is, maybe it's like, I just think he's a better player, and that sort of is like, it was influencing me a little too much. I thought he had a couple of good chances in the match. I mean, obviously Darwin did too, though, and neither one of them, did anything this weekend. So, but it actually brings me to a question about Newcastle, and so unfortunately for Newcastle, they lost another player to injury. Nick Pope. It looks like he's out for possibly quite a long time, and that brings in. Our boy Dubravka, Brandon, Martin Dubravka, back again. He's gotten minutes. How many years have we had moments of Dubravka? Let's see, on and off. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, this is the 7th season that we've had at least some Dubravka in it.
7 long seasons.
7 long seasons.
I like him. I think he's a fine keeper. He's an adequate stand-in. And listen, if Lascelles can fill in for Botman, then I'm sure Dubravka can stand in for Pope. It's fine.
Yeah, and he's 3.9 million. So this brings me to my question.
Okay.
If you're wild carding right now, we know that some people have held their wild card for game weeks. I don't think wild carding ahead of a midweek is a great strategy, because you tend to see some interesting. Even Klopp has sort of been known for this over the years, like just rotating it midweek out of what he thinks is a necessity. But I think that, and Pep famously, of course. But I think, I just think anyway, I don't want to get too sidetracked on the midweek stuff. Midweek fixtures are chaos. You have to go into the midweeks knowing that. That's just, even if you get the kind of, the full strength squads, you still end up with really weird match results in midweeks. I know this like empirically proven, Brandon, based on my own, at least based on my own experience, because I've taken off many a half day from work, especially in December. I love to do it. I always have all this extra time that I haven't used during the year, and I'm doing it this Wednesday. And I might try to skip over to the Black Horse and catch some matches. But I always end up disappointed because there's just too much chaos, and you don't kind of get the consistency that you typically get on the weekends. It leads to some very fun matches often, but they're just a little inconsistent. But anyway, back on the wild card point, if someone was wild carding in 16, 17, 18, I think it's very likely they would have 3 Newcastle players. Let's assume that Gordon is fine. And if so, if you were wild carding right now, which 3 Newcastle players would you have?
Trippier, Gordon, and Isak.
Okay. I think that makes sense. I think you could make an argument, depending on how long Pope's out for Dubravka, Trippier, Isak. I think those would be 3, a solid 3 as well, just because we've got nothing from our defenders so far this season, right?
Yes.
And you might as well get a 3.9 million starter. And
glorified Stoke City, Newcastle are.
Yeah, but their midfield is so good, right? I mean, you talked about Joe Linton, but I thought Bruno Guimaraes had a great match as well. Yes. The only one who cracked me up was Almiron, who like had a good match, but also plays like he's on a different team. It's like this weird thing where you're sort of like everyone's kind of playing, and then you got Almiron over there on the right, just sort of mixing it up and just sort of like, I guess it's good to have a little chaos in the team.
Anybody who's played FIFA online will know when you drop into a match and there's clearly one kid who is just there. Either his controller is on the fritz or he just is playing. Yeah, he's just doing his own thing. He's
like one of those. He's not there for a long time. He's there for a good time.
Yeah,
sort of guy.
But you pass the ball to the guy with the blue triangle over his head, and you're like, I shouldn't have done that. We're not going to see the ball for another 5 minutes. I agree. Funny. That was Almiron there. All in all, a rather clinical performance. Isak's performance was kind of interesting in that he didn't have a bad game. It was hard for me to tell how much he impacted the game.
Yeah.
And I think he did.
I think that's
too,
a fair. Yeah. He didn't have a bad match. I agree. I thought he could have scored, I think, in that match without too much trouble, but I thought he was okay. I don't know. He's just the thing is he's just a really good player, right? And so he just like he'll come back, he'll win the ball, he'll set up play. His positioning is always perfect, right? Mm-hmm. And so, and I mean, it's, and again, like it was like almost nearly 3xG for Newcastle in that match, and I think that there was definitely a version of that match where he gets something. But anyway, c'est la vie. So yeah, I think we're aligned in Trippier and Isak, and then that third spot. I mean, the fact that they're down like 10 players and there are still so many players you'd want. And I saw there was some, Wilson was talking about how he might be hoping he hopes to resume training sometime soon. But the fact that he hasn't even trained at all yet, I think points to, I don't know that we're really going to see him
next year, Callum.
Yeah, most likely. I still think it's most likely we don't see him until January, just because he's so injury prone. You can't rush a guy like that back.
Yep.
All right, a couple more questions here, Brandon. Do we need to focus on acquiring more Arsenal assets? Like, do you? I have 0 at the moment. You have 1? No, you have 2, right? You've got Gabriel now as well. So, how are you feeling about? Okay, how are you feeling about your? I guess you've already told me how you felt about Martinelli. So how are you feeling about Gabriel, the center back? And then how are you feeling about Arsenal generally?
Well, I have Saliba, not Gabriel, but I mean, what's the difference?
Yeah.
The goal, when that Wolves goal went in against Arsenal on Saturday, I had this feeling of, well, this is like owning a City defender. It is a team that controls the balance of play throughout virtually the entire match, and then suddenly a lapse in concentration results in a clean sheet wipeout. So what you've done getting an Arsenal defender is you've gotten a really great asset and a really, really great defense without a real understanding if you're ever going to get any fantasy points from them. What makes it even more funny owning a center back is both Tomiyasu and Zinchenko were super involved in the attack going forward and got returns for it. I'm not in a position to like second guess the Saliba pickup, and I think Arsenal are good enough. I mean, they're top of the table, up the Gunners. That I still think that it's a defense worth investing in, just because of the promise of what's to come. I mean, I feel like we should be willing to try anything with defenders at this point, and I'm thinking there's more value in Arsenal defense than there is in the City defense. So fine, I'm stung by taking a hit to get in a 1-pointer from Saliba. Martinelli, and then the rest of the Arsenal attack. I do think that you and I have kind of dismissed the power of Bukayo Saka this season. Like, he's kind of just like, he's not sleepwalking his way into fantasy points, but it's almost like our assessment of Saka is kind of sleepy, and he's just on the ball more than any of these other guys. And watching that Wolves match, everything went up the right with Odegaard and Saka. So if I had enough money to get Saka or Odegaard in for Martinelli, I would do it for game week 15. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, I think I'm just in a spot now where it's just hard to have Saka and Son. I think that's really the big problem. It's hard to, if you're going to have Salah and Haaland, which is still my long-term plan. It's hard to have them both. I guess. I mean, even if I guess if I were to downgrade Alvarez to like a 4.5, then I could move Luiz. I mean, let's say I just did that as we're talking here. I mean, so I could bring in a 4.5, but then it's like, great. So now I'm going into the festive fixtures with like basically like no bench depth, right? I mean, outside of Cameron Archer, who can't be trusted, No. And actually, he's actually even more than 4.5 now. There's really nobody at 4.5. Really? Archer's at what? Is he at? He's at 4.6 maybe. He's at 4.6. I'm gonna mangle his name, but Semenyo had another nice match today, and he's been consistently getting minutes. He's available at 4.6 for Bournemouth. Scored today, had an assist last week, scored a couple weeks before that. So he does feel like a slightly more MFFA pick than Archer. I mean, you're not going to need the consistency of minutes most likely, but does seem a little more fun maybe.
Would you rather have a player for not the worst team in modern memory? I'd go with Semenyo there.
Also a factor. Yeah, do I want a team where possibly the player could score? I guess that is a factor.
So right now you're looking at no Arsenal for the festive fixtures.
I'm kind of with you. I still think I'll get a defender. I actually am slightly worried about the Ben White situation and what's going to happen there. I think that the Tomiyasu has like a muscle injury. We'll see what happens there. But Ben White is too good not to play, right? So if he starts to play more, does that maybe push Gabriel out again, right? We saw this early on in the season, right, where White and Saliba were playing together, and Gabriel Margallis could not get a start, and that was and unfortunately Thomas Partey just can't stay healthy, and so that hasn't really turned into a long-term strategy for Arteta. But then Tomiyasu suddenly appears, starts playing well, and he sort of does it, as a result of a Ben White injury. But regardless, I mean, Tomiyasu has to get minutes now too, right? I think if he's healthy, he just looks too good not to. I'm not saying I would not buy Tomiyasu because I don't want the risk. I don't enjoy having players like that where every single week I've got to sweat the clean sheet, see if they actually.
What if Tomiyasu shows up to training this week with a fully bleached hair? Do you think he's going to be put in the same sin bin that Ben White was?
That's a great question. Like they just swap hair. Let me think this one through a little bit. I don't know.
Give it some time. Yeah, you don't have to answer.
I will.
Now.
I'll give it some time. All right. So that is, we promised a rapid preview, Brandon. I think we covered some of the ground. We talked about captaincies, transfers. I guess my final piece of advice in the midweek is not to It's fine if you don't even make a transfer, because I think there is a lot of chaos this week. I have what I think is an opportunity to move a central midfielder into a more attacking midfield player as a like swap with good fixture. So that's the move that I'm leaning towards. But otherwise, I would also be okay holding my transfer for this week. It does not seem impossible to me that Man City concede a pen, in which case I could get like a Luis penalty or something like that.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, I'm overwhelmed by how cold it looks at these matches, and all I can see is these players, like all their muscles like snapping because of the frigid temperatures. And I'm thinking, if I could have two free transfers for the festive fixtures ongoing, that's good.
Yeah, I don't know why it's so much colder than it is here in New York, Brandon, but it does kind of feel that way. So, all right, 2 final questions here, Brandon. Who is your XDIH? Who's got that dog in him, Brandon? Brought to you by the hit movie Strays.
Hit movie Strays is going to feature Raheem Sterling. I think he's got that XDIH at Old Trafford. He's going to exploit that flank, and he's going to get a goal.
Wow. Okay, I like it. I'll go with your boy, Cole Palmer. I think that Cole Palmer.
Oh, well, we're both going
comfortable
Chelsea.
with the city of. Yeah, that's true. I hadn't even thought about that. I would even like make the connection that you literally just. Yeah, but we're both going Chelsea, and I think that he's going to be ready to show his value to the club after getting subbed. And I actually think
the
he had a little
reverse
bit of
jinx
an
in full effect here.
Yeah, no, well, not intentional, but yeah, that's the only way it works if it's not intentional. But the I didn't he have like a little bit of a possible muscle injury, and that was the reason he didn't play this weekend.
I hadn't heard that. No, I hadn't heard that.
I think so, but I don't trust any rumors anymore. It feels like there's like people are out there peddling lies, Brandon. All right, so final question is: if you can only watch one match this midweek, right? Let's say you like me have a couple extra hours to use up this week. What's the one match you want to watch this week?
The Villa Man City match, I think we've already spent quite a lot of time talking about. And then clearly we're expecting something from Chelsea against Manchester United. And you think Ten Hag is under all amounts of pressure in front of that home support. That's bound to be a great fixture as well. I will also point out Fulham, Nottingham Forest. I'm always looking for the under the radar, evenly matched clubs. And I think Fulham Forest might be that under the radar. This is going to be a back and forth sort of match.
Yeah, that could be. It could be similar to the home match they played on Monday a week ago. Who did they play in that? It starts to blend together during the festive fixtures.
It was Wolves, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think you're right there.
Yeah, Wolves. It was a 3-2 with all those penalties. Yeah. Now, what do you think about the Brighton Brentford? That's like another like evenly matched what to expect. Know.
That feels like a 2-2 or something like that, right? I feel like you're going to see like 4 goals. Maybe one team wins 4-0. I don't really know. Maybe it's another 3-1. Brighton love to play a 3-1 or a 3-2, but I think we're going to see at least 4 goals spread across that match. Some combination.
Did I miss a match? Which one are you looking most forward to?
No, I'll just go with Man City, Villa. I should say Villa, Man City, Villa host to Man City. That's the one that I'm even putting fantasy aside. I'm just very interested in that match.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll be back on Thursday evening for our Patreon supporters with the preview of the actual weekend fixtures, so the game week 16 fixtures. But for now, let's say goodbye, Brandon. Do you want to thank our producer patrons?
Yeah, thanks as always to producers Mike DePietro, Trevor Ingerson, our buddy Chris Howell, Bobbas Kuhn, James Holland, Dave Wagner-Lodahl, Nick Wright, Lazaros Llanos, Jesse Halstead, Bruce Kerr, Brian Chin, Blair Jacobson, Todd Byerly, Andy Portlock at FPL Merch, Kerry Swanson, Jefferson Turner, Buffalo Wild Wings, Francis Moore, Sam Shower, Caleb Robbie, Volker Paulson, Kruger, Alex Holcomb, James Keatley, The Saint, Bob Fox, Craig Jackson, Shalin F. Kadakia, Terrence O'Donnell, Heath Cram, Thomas Tislob, Noah Louise, Travis Grant, Linus Venderstrom, Dan Parsons, James C., Matthew Skinner, Fro Jacobson, Brennan, Daniel Hart, Lolly, Ben Coombs, Eric Kite, and our newest producer, Gareth H. Rate, review, subscribe to the Always Cheating podcast, wherever you get your podcast. It was cool seeing us pop up on Spotify Wraps. If you're still logging into Spotify and checking out your Wrapped, share that with us. We'd love to see it. Follow us wherever you get your social media. And for all this information and more, visit alwayscheating.com. Any last-minute holiday shopping, Josh? What would you most like to get from the Always Cheating shop?
Oh, that's a great. It's got to be. The pints are up in the shop now, right? Can people
the pint glass is available at the shop. Yeah, if you want to. Always Cheating, 16-ounce pint glass, T-shirts, coffee cups, hoodies, all that sort of stuff. Check that out at our website.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll be back on Thursday for our Patreon supporters, and then back Sunday evening after that for everybody else. Bye.